So yeah, I just saw Jigsaw, the newest addition to the Saw franchise. And when talking about this movie, it's best to ask one particular question. Why was this movie made? Correction. Why was this movie made aside from wanting to make money? And you find it a difficult question to ask, because the technology and the effects they use haven't really advanced much since the previous films. Of course, it's been about 10 years, so I can't really fault them too much on that. But it doesn't add anything plot-wise, it doesn't clear up any plot holes, any mysteries in the previous franchise. It doesn't answer any questions. Instead, it raises questions, and not good questions. And overall, it's tough to say who this was really made for. If anything, it's tough to say if this could even be considered a Saw movie, if you will. Instead, maybe a Saw fan film, but not an official addition to the Saw franchise. But I'll get more into that in the spoiler section. So, what's the plot? Well, 10 years after the death of Jigsaw, the murders are continuing again. And it all boils down to it, is he really dead? What's going on? Who's the killer? And can we save the victims in time? We essentially have an onslaught of new characters. The 5 people stuck in the trap. We have a surgeon, a doctor who is really into the Jigsaw stuff. We have a couple cops. We have like a wide assortment of characters. None of them are returning characters from the previous films, though. They're all new characters with no real relation to the previous characters we knew in the franchise. The issue is this plot gets really convoluted and head-scratching in a lot of places. And the Saw franchise was convoluted to begin with. It was just sort of a convoluted gore fest. But here it takes it to a ludicrous degree, to where even fans that accepted some of the ridiculousness of the previous films would be left scratching their heads and being like, what? Yeah. It starts off interesting enough, then there's a twist near the end in regards to what's going on, and I felt a little bit irritated. I felt misled when I got to that twist, and I feel a lot of people are too. The effects in this one especially felt really cheap, like cheaper than the previous entries. There's one moment where like this dead body is hanging, and it is the fakest looking thing I've seen out of this franchise. I mean, give the makeup team and the prop experts a few extra days to perfect that. Give them a little bit extra time to make it look like the skin isn't made out of silicone, that it's not the fakest goddamn body on the planet Earth. In terms of connection to the Saw franchise, aside from referencing John Kramer, there really isn't any. This is probably the most standalone Saw movie in the franchise, which is probably why they just called it Jigsaw instead of Saw. So the plot was out there, the effects were fairly cheap, the characters were newly introduced, and we spend little time with them, so there's not a whole lot to like. There was one character I did like, though, Ryan. He was like the typical asshole of the group, but everything he did, he was right in doing, so I kind of liked him for that. And yeah, I'll get into it in the spoiler section, but the whole realm by which people plan out the traps, whether it be Jigsaw, Hoffman, or Amanda, here it gets silly how they were able to predict what the characters would do, and the response by which he would give them in their actions was out there. Overall, I would not recommend this movie. It really doesn't add anything new to the franchise, so it really can't be for fans or for newcomers. I guess it was a nice attempt at the Saw franchise again, one that I like, but it just felt like a misfire to me. Just a failed attempt at trying to make money off of a dead franchise. Alright, spoilers. Time to get into the spoiler section. So, the big one. Is John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, alive? Drum roll. No, he is not. We are misled in the marketing. We are misled by the plot. This entire movie was meant to make you believe that he was behind all this. I was curious too, because they tried really hard to make you think he was alive. Right down from them digging up his body and the body's gone. They're saying, well, what if he's still alive? And at first I was like, no way. No way. We saw in the fourth movie his autopsy. Unless there was an evil twin or something, it is bullshit that he's still alive. And then we get to that scene where he takes off the hood and it's him. So my question was, how? How in the fuck? Well, you get it, folks. That was way in the past. That was 10 years prior to this film taking place. It just so happens that the other guy, the surgeon, was doing the exact same murders that correlate with that to, I guess make people think Jigsaw's alive again? Or something? I don't know. But yeah, they tried their damnedest to make you think he was still there, but no, he's still dead. His body is still cut up from the autopsy. It's just another surgeon guy. But the issue I have with this is, it was a doctor who had previously wronged Jigsaw in the past, who was put through one of his tests, and then ultimately began working for him and carrying out his work. Basically Dr. Gordon. I mean, I guess it's understandable that they didn't have it as Dr. Gordon because it would be way too obvious who the copycat Jigsaw is, but couldn't you add some variety to it? It felt like we were retreading old territory. Speaking of which, I thought Dr. Gordon was going to carry out Jigsaw's work, but then again, Saw 3D was a jumbled mess, so I guess we can just leave that one behind. But yeah, none of the characters make any appearance. Jill, Saw's wife, is briefly mentioned as the owner of the cabin where everything takes place, but for the most part, none of the plot elements or anything like that really play into this film. It's kind of its own thing. It's kind of like a fan film for me, of someone saying, oh, right, well, I was also in a trap and became his protege and carried out the work. Also, it raises a lot of questions because the surgeon guy, he sets up the police officer to take the fall as the Jigsaw copycat, or something to that effect. But he put all these people through the trap, then one by one revealed their bodies to everyone. It rose no suspicion. Like, did they not notice he was gone for these extremely large periods of time? Like that bit where he takes the guy's body and puts it in John Kramer's grave. Can you imagine the amount of time it would have had to taken for him to dig up that body, swap it out, rebury it again, and then go back to work like nothing happened? I mean, at least in the previous films, Jigsaw had people helping him, but in this one it's shown that he was all by himself. It was just him. So how does just one guy do all this bullshit? It's just silly. But yeah, everybody dies. The cop guy gets sliced up in the end, and I guess he's framed for being Jigsaw, while the other guy goes and carries out Jigsaw's work, I think. It's out there. I appreciate Tobin Bell for coming back. I liked him as Jigsaw. I always did like him in the franchise, so it was kind of cool seeing him on screen again. But they could have used a second draft. They could have used a second draft and said, okay, wait, how is he able to do this? None of it makes any sense. And also, back to the thing earlier about planning it out. So there was this door that said, no escape, and you weren't supposed to go to the door. But our good friend Ryan, he went to the door, and he tried to get it open, and, fell into this trap where his leg got, wrapped up in these wires, and there's this lever. And nobody pulls the lever, they just kind of leave it be, and then the other two characters piss off into another room and get trapped in there. And they're slowly being buried alive, and, all these tools are falling down like you see in the trailer. And the key to stopping all that was to pull the lever, but if he had never gone there in the first place, or had pulled it before they went in there, then that trap wouldn't have worked in the first place. So he had to have known that the guy would have gone there despite being told not to, and known he wouldn't have pulled the lever until the guys got trapped. But it just gets so silly. And earlier and later in the film, one of the other people goes up to that exact same platform and tries going through the door again, and she's perfectly fine. She doesn't fall through into the wires. There's no secondary trap. It's like, so if he was just slightly closer to the wall when he was trying to break the door open, he wouldn't have fallen through and he would have been perfectly fine. And I don't know. And it's also how Jigsaw knew all the stuff that he did about these people as well. I mean, that one lady who, like, stole the money and then the woman had a heart attack. How did he find her? But then again, I guess you could say the same thing about every other character in the franchise. Just don't think about it. Just don't think about how he knows these things. But yeah, that's Jigsaw. It's a jumbled, convoluted mess. Where would I rank it in terms of the... It would be at the bottom 3 of the Saw franchise for me. Like, the top 3 are the first one, the second one, and the 6th one. And the bottom 3, I don't know, Saw 3D is probably down there somewhere in this movie. I don't know what I'd rank like the other third bottom one. Maybe 5, who knows. But those are just my thoughts, guys. What are yours? Leave a comment down below. Tell me your favorite Saw movie. And if you're watching this, Tobin Bell, I love you. You're awesome. Thank you for appearing in this. Wish it was a better script. And as always, stay golden.